I don't know. I'm trying so hard to think of like a joke, but it's like, we're built different. I think I said that last time. Oh man, this is so hard. Aurora, be funny.
Can't. Funny driver's not working. Funny bone has been surgically removed last week.
All right, Cabral. Here's the rub, buddy. You just have to play like a clown honk, like a, and then we'll just go, and that's it. That's the joke.
Yeah, we're serious. We're all about production value when doing good analysis and stuff. You're the funny man.
Yeah, you guys are. You're literally in clown division. Okay, so figure some shit out. Welcome back to Double Dip Draft Season 5. We are on the final week of the Crown Division. I am your host, Spood, coach of the Southtown Sandslashers. Joining me, as always,
it's Aurora, coach of the Hunsbook Hunters, and the final week is upon us. We are here. The season's done. At least, the main season.
Yeah. Main season's done, and there were a lot of questions unanswered going into the final week of the Crown Division. Namely, who is going to take that 4th spot? And that's really, that's the perspective that everybody watched the recaps from before, right? Like, everybody was like, okay, as soon as week 6 was over and everybody knew, like, what the win conditions or what the playoffs qualification conditions were for every player, they were just like, all right, every replay that drops, like every match that gets played, is so important. Except for one, but we'll touch on that in a second. Every single match is so important because it determines essentially 2 of the matches have to go a very particular way, but 3 of the remaining players below the top 3. So there were 5 players left. 3 of those players were still in contention to get into playoffs as of week 6. So it was a scrap to pluck that final spot.
It's also a question that not all aspects were exactly in each player's hand. The person who was like the least likely in contention, in this case Nihilus, his results did not only depend on his own performance, as well he also required a very specific turnout of one other match. Yeah,
essentially, just as a quick refresher, if you don't remember or if you haven't watched the previous week's Crown Division analysis, essentially, the 3 players left in contention that were not locked in for playoffs were Mass, sitting at the top with a 3-3, right, going into this week, because it would have been, week 6, and so he'd already beaten, I believe he'd beaten Nihilus, Chemith, and Skittles. And so his final week was versus Cabral, who was nipping at his heels, who Cabral had 1 less win, but a stronger differential, which meant that if he beat Mass, going into this week, like in their final week, then he would pass him up, which was kind of insane. But his differential was not as strong as it needed to be to guarantee that he would drop in if he won versus Mass, because Mass, by virtue of having that 3-3 record, meant that he had 1 extra win to play with. So no matter what happened, as long as he won this week, he was in. Didn't matter by what margin, didn't matter by how much. All he had to do was get the win. Cabral, on the other hand, would have to win by a margin of either 1 or 2-0, depending on if Nihilus managed to 5 or 6-0 Skittles. Because if Nihilus had 6-0'd Skittles, then his differential would have potentially passed up Cabral, and then his head-to-head, where he beat Cabral, would have pushed him ahead in case of the tiebreaker. So for Nihilus to get into playoffs, he needed to either 6-0 or 5-0 Skittles this week, and for Cabral to get into playoffs, he had to, depending on Nihilus' performance, assuming that they played first, if Cabral wanted to guarantee get in, he had to beat Mass by a margin of 3 Pokemon or more to guarantee it. Whereas Mass had to just win by any means necessary. So it was really, really intense for those 3 people, especially this week. And so those 2 matches, we're going to cover those 2 last, since they're really, really important to determining the landscape of the playoffs. But now that this massive opening diatribe is over, Aurora, I would love for you to tell me the first match we're going to look at today.
the first match we're looking at today is between Kenneth of the Ne'er-Do-Well Needle Kings and FIREBOLT of the Minnesota Magic Arps.
Yeah, and give me a primer. How is FIREBOLT's season versus Kenneth's season so far? What does this match mean?
This match for the Crown Division is, in theory, the least important. FIREBOLT is already mathematically eliminated. There's no way he can make it to playoffs, whereas Kenneth is sort of looking to either hold on to his third seeded spot, or has the potential that if Scootaloo loses his match, he can climb up. So Kenneth just wants to get as much differential out of this one as he can.
Yeah, essentially, Kenneth wants to win by as wide a margin as possible to make his seed look better for playoffs in the event that Scoots bombs versus Vincent. But otherwise, yeah, FIREBOLT really can't get into playoffs anymore, nor can he really adjust for his differential win-loss at this point into the season. And Kenneth is already confirmed in. So this match, really, either one could take it or leave it. You know, it's really mostly a pride match and sort of a potentially strategic match for Kenneth to have a better playoffs run. But even then, it's out of his control. You know, he could totally go nuts in this match and still not get third. Or rather, still get third, but not get out of third. So that was really what they were looking at going into it. And honestly, I think FIREBOLT had a decent shot. Skarmory, again, has a habit of walling the shit out of a ton of different Pokemon. It's tough for Greedent to get through, tough for Escavalier to get through, tough for potentially Clef to get through if it's not running Flamethrower, which I would imagine it probably is. But then after that, it kind of opens up, like, Flamethrower coverage on Nidoking can get through it. Rotom Heat obviously can get through it with both of its stabs, and Galvantula, of course, also being a threat. So Skarmory a bit more threatened than usual, but still important to keep in the back for Kenneth's physical attackers.
Yeah, I'd say, you know, a Pokemon with still walls, like, possibly half of the opposing team is probably worth bringing.
Yeah, I agree, of course. And you'll notice what he didn't bring this time is Hippo is on the bench again. And FIREBOLT, I believe last week he didn't bring Hippo or Garchomp, and this time he did bring Garchomp, but the Hippo is nowhere to be seen. So the Sandvale strat is officially dead.
We tried it. It didn't work. It got like one Ice Beam to miss somewhere early in the season.
Yeah, which was sick.
And that's about it.
Yeah, I believe FIREBOLT won that match too, right?
It's
that
possible.
was Mass. Yeah, I know he didn't beat Skittles, and I know he didn't beat CABRAL.
Right,
So
yeah,
it had to be Mass.
Yeah, Mass was very confused. I remember now.
Yeah, so he dodged Mass's Ice Beam and got that win. So in that way, it did kind of work out. But you know, conversely, it's been rough for the rest of the season. And FIREBOLT, again, I cannot stress this enough. Great player, honestly, consistently playoffs class player. This is easily the worst performance that he's had in Double Dip history, and it sucks because it's just like, that shit can happen, man, when you pick up a draft and you're just not vibing with it, or it's a little too memey, or, you know, it doesn't match up well versus your division, then it can just turn into a real shit show. So, unfortunately for FIREBOLT, not a lot that he can salvage out of this game, but let's see if he can make something happen versus Kenneth, and we'll go into turn one right now. Kenneth leading Greedent. This thing does every move. I mean, really.
Yeah.
You don't know what Greedent's going to do at this point. It could be utility, it could be stupid defense, it could just be... I think what it's running this week is like a 4-attack set. So...
Yeah, it's not running Belly Drum this time around. And also, we do see finally, you know, the Garchomp with the rough skin.
With the rough skin, yeah. And FIREBOLT does pretty much immediately concede. He doesn't know that Swords Dance Earthquake is going to kill Greedent, and he doesn't want potentially like a Rotom to come in on it or something, or I don't know. He just didn't want to chance it, so he got the hell out of there to hold on to his Garchomp.
Yeah, he does like weirdly switch into Galvantula, which then takes a hit and procs its eject button, which causes it to switch out again.
Yeah, I have no idea what the hell that's about, but you know.
Ken was probably looking to just get up his webs and then be forced out, but he didn't take into calculation, you know, what would happen if he just hard switches into something.
Yeah, and FIREBOLT actually got away with a lot of sus play with that Skarmory right there, staying in on Galvantula, roosting, and then switching into Garchomp to kill it.
Yeah, FIREBOLT just decided, like, either, like, you can keep over-predicting me turn after turn after turn, or you're going to just click the move that kills me while I keep just doing stuff.
Yeah, he's pretty much forcing Kenneth to, you know, attack what's in front of him. But you'll notice here, actually, this Duraludon comes back in, dies to Earth Power. It's not Sash, it's, you know, It's nothing, which means that this thing could have potentially killed Duraludon earlier and not lost Greedent, but I think it's smart for Kenneth to scout.
Yeah, do you know off the top of your head what Okaberry does?
Akaberry is having the damage of a Fire-type move, yes.
Okay.
Which would be the only move, or rather the only berry that would make sense in terms of type resistance berries, because Bug Steel is only weak to fire.
Yeah, it only has one weakness.
Yeah, very good typing, despite what you may have heard. Yeah, one weakness, a lot of resists, very strong typing.
Yeah. Kemeth's just spamming that discharge, looking for that paralysis.
Yeah, he
that's
finds
the
it
only
on.
reason you run this discharge.
Yeah. The Scald of electric coverage. I mean, it's really like, he already got it on Togekiss, which is the only one that it really mattered on. It was Scarf Drapion, but it never got revealed, I don't think. This thing is Boots, which is interesting given that it's not really, it's not Web's weak given that it's got Triage, but again, he could have spec'd for like a specific, like Dazzling Gleam has to proc on something, or,
Maybe. What do you think? How do you think this thing wears its boots?
It like sticks the bottom two flowers kind of deep into the boots and sort of walks around like that.
Just stuffs it in with the pins.
It's funny. I love Comfy. I love the boots, man. I love the idea of the boots. And unfortunately for Firebolt, well, I guess it could have been worse. I mean, not to obviously be like, I'm not patronizing him or anything, but a 3-0 on Kemeth, you'll take it. It's Kemeth. He's really damn strong. He's had a really strong season too, especially now ending at 5-2. Having only lost to Vincent and Mamass. Having only lost to Vincent and Mass. Had a pretty damn good season. Maybe slightly worse than his last season in terms of his regular season placement, given that he went 6-1 last season, having only lost to IDM. But shoot, I mean, it's hard to beat that season anyway. So 5-2 is, you take it, if you get it.
Yeah. Plus, a loss to IDM, that's acceptable.
Yeah, you really. Yeah.
Nobody's really here to be like, oh, you lost to IDM? How did you do that?
Right, wow, you lost to IDM. Unfortunately for Kevin, he's definitely going to get that a lot for Mass this season, I think, where it's just like, you lost to Mass? What the fuck? But again, not to make fun of Mass either. I think Mass has shown a lot of growth this season. He's actually, again, the favorite going into playoffs, or looking like the favorite for qualifying for playoffs at this point. So, but we'll touch on that later. We'll see if he made the run.
He just needs the dub.
He just needs the dub. In the meantime, let's talk about the only other match in this division that did not make a difference for playoffs qualification, but did in fact make a difference for seeding. Tell me, Aurora. Oh, actually, no, you introduced the last one. I'll tell you, Aurora, what we've got next.
Sure, inform me, enlighten me.
We have got Spoopman, my man Vincent, coach of the Hairlin Haluchas, versus Scoots33, the coach of Dumble Spood's army. And this is another storied match. So Scoots, at this point, 5-1, having only dropped a game to Kemeth, and Vincent 6-0, having not dropped a game anywhere. But on the flip side of that, Scoots is, I guess Scoots and Kemeth were both seeded to beat him, in theory, or like we're seeded above him for this division. And Vincent already did get the upset on Kemeth earlier in the season. But Scoots, of course, the reigning champion of Double Dip Draft, and we'll say thorn in the side of Vincent since last season, where he dodged the air slash and made it to grand finals in his stead. This was a really big, important one. I think there was a lot of emotion in this one, especially from Vincent, where he wanted the win so bad. It meant so much. It's getting the run back versus Scoots and winning, and also getting that undefeated season after IDM and Aurora had already lost it. Spoilers, of course, for Week 7 of the Armor Division if you haven't watched that yet, but you should. So at this point, Vincent was the only one left potentially undefeated.
Yeah, also, aside from that, Vincent and Scoots' differential are exactly tied, both on 18. Mm-hmm. So if Scoots just wins, even by 1-0, even by 0-0, he takes it.
That's right.
Becomes first place.
Because then he takes the head-to-head. And same for Vincent. I mean, if Vincent wins by any amount, then he obviously will be 2 wins ahead of Scoots, will be undefeated, will have the superior differential, or at least, tied or whatever. So that's really the stakes. And whoever wins this gets first seed, which makes the difference basically between fighting myself, Spood, or fighting Claire on the opposite side of bracket, since they were already locked in 3rd and 4th. Or I guess 4th and 3rd, respectively. I'm in 4th, Claire's in 3rd. So really, whoever wins this gets the privilege of fighting me in round 1 of playoffs, and whoever loses has to fight Claire instead. So let's take a look and see what happened going into this turn 1. And I'll tell you what, just as a little thing between you and me, Vincent was terrified of this match. It was a tough match.
Yeah, Vincent's matchup against Scoots' team just is not a good one, and he was very happy with this first turn.
Yeah, that ice beam was super huge. Scoots just not even bothering to try to scout for it. Vincent taking the opportunity to just pop it. You'll see Still Valley Ground as well, which I believe is the first time he's run that. He's normally running it either Ghost or Fairy to accommodate that hole in his draft.
Yeah, and here we see he gets the knockout on the Slenderous, which was one of the Pokemon that he was just terrified of.
And Heliolisk did really, really well having Dry Skin comes in on Feeny Surf, and he got a really strong couple of opener turns.
Yeah.
And then misses Crabhammer.
Oh.
Which does matter. It's unfortunate, but it's really bad.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's a Bandit too. Choice Bandit.
I think it showed Life Orb, or I think it
actually
shows
Life Orb. Life Orb, yeah, it does show Life Orb.
But would have done
that's a lot of damage that's like missing there.
And it's actually
even resisted, that does a lot.
Yeah, slower.
Here we see exactly why it matters, because now this thing doesn't kill it.
Feeny lives on 3, kills back.
Yeah, and now he doesn't have a ground type anymore for Circuitry, doesn't have a ground type anymore for the Lycanroc, doesn't have anything like comfortably can take hits from this Heracross.
Yeah, it's insane. Gets off the Moxie, Crawdaunt comes in, then does reveal his Life Orb here with Aqua Jet. But Life Orb plus 2 rocks has already put it down to 66.
Yeah.
Forced to Aqua Jet versus Circuitry to Scout Scarf, and nothing you can do about it.
Yeah. The best shot he still had at this point was to hit Quiver Dance with this thing.
Yeah.
And hope that outspeeds and one-shots the rest of Scoots' team, but
it should outspeed the rest of the team, yeah. Because
it should outspeed
Space 100. But he was running a bulkier run.
Yeah, he was running a bulkier set, so it actually didn't because this Lycanroc is scarfed.
Right. So unfortunate from Vincent, and loses the undefeated title right at the last second at the 11th hour, going down to second place. Scoots taking his place at the top of the division, ending at 6-1, having only dropped to Kenneth. And pretty much things became the way that they ought to be, or at least the seeding had determined that they ought to be. Minus, swap Kenneth and Vincent, and that's what we would have predicted. Your boy, Scoots goes back up to the top of his division after hanging around second, third the whole time. Just shoots up to first at the last second. You've got IDM and Scoots leading the divisions at the end of the regular season, which... Could you have expected any different, Aurora?
I would... Just like I expect the sun to come up in the morning, that's pretty much what you can expect from this, assuming they're in different divisions.
Yeah, and Scoots, just... No fear. Even the tough opening turns, like Vincent really was playing super aggressively, just hitting all the right reads, and then it was just all kind of fell apart. The Crabhammer miss sucked.
Yeah.
I don't think that made him lose, but it made the game way, way harder. I'm sure it was a major contributing factor.
Yeah, I feel like after that miss, the momentum just shifts so hard in Scoots' favor.
Yeah.
And Vincent just struggles to gain it back.
Yeah, and what's strange, honestly, about that Crabhammer miss, too, is if he'd gotten it earlier, it might not have mattered so much, but at that point, he'd already revealed Dry Skin on Heliolisk, so Scoots could safely Moonblast, and at that point, it was pretty much Jeej.
Tough situation. At that point, you're stuck between making the real, do I go into Nidoqueen and predict the Moonblast coming out, or do I still go into Heliolisk and... I don't know.
Yeah, and it's tough. Forcing a lot of weird 50-50s that were not in Vincent's favor. It was pretty much just turn 5 or 6 or whatever. It immediately swung from being Vincent favored to being heavily Scoots favored, and it never really swung back in Vincent's favor after that.
Feeny, as it does, just kind of sat around, clicked 5 moves, and took lives again.
Yeah, again, Feeny just sits in front of stuff. Scoots doesn't understand the concept of sacking a Feeny because it never dies. Why would it?
The thing just sits there, water comes out of it, moon energy comes out of it, things just die around it, then
right.
Open to chill. It's what happened?
Oh, wow. So, unfortunate from Vincent, but hey, Scoots will take that all the way to the bank, having only lost 1 game by 1 Pokemon. I would say quite a strong season from Scoots. And again, a strong season from Vincent. Do not get me wrong. He was looking like an absolute terror in that division.
Yeah, he was 2 Pokemon off from just taking the season without any losses.
Yeah.
That's just insane.
Insane. We haven't had a flawless season in a little bit, so would have been a sight to see, but did not end up panning out in that way. But I'll tell you what, Aurora, now that we know how Kenneth and Scoots and Vincent fared, let's talk about our 4th potential playoffs qualifier. We have got Skittles the Butt, coach of the Nevada Ninetales, versus the man, the myth, the legend, the blaster, Nihilus with the Dallas Ducklets. Nihilus, again, I think overperforming or having quite a strong opening season. At this point was 2-4 going into this week, having picked up wins on Firebolt and Cabral. Firebolt and Cabral he'd beaten. And again, Nihilus was still in the potential running to take that 4th playoff spot, but he has to beat Skittles by a 6-0 or a 5-0. Ideally a 6-0. That means that a 2-0 win from Cabral will not be enough to clinch the playoffs on his end. But even if he gets a 5-0 win, that still means that if it goes down to the wire on Mass vs. Cabral and Cabral clinches it, then Nihilus is the one who takes the playoff spot instead. So this was really important for Nihilus.
And he knew it was important, and he knew his sort of like margin for error. He knew that if 2 Pokemon dropped, that's it. So you'll see Nihilus playing for that differential here, making sure that as few Pokemon as possible die.
Yeah. And conversely, again, Skittles doesn't have a lot to win or lose from doing this. If he is concerned particularly with like his placement relative to Firebolt, then there would be that to push for. But aside from just beating Nihilus into the ground and like securing playoffs for either Cabral or Mass, Skittles doesn't have a lot to gain from winning this, but Nihilus has everything to lose. So the second that Skittles takes more than 1 Pokemon, you can essentially consider it game over for Nihilus' season in Double the Draft.
Yeah, at that point you're just playing for fun, seeing how well they can do the match.
Yeah. So let's
see
jump in.
how this match goes.
Yeah,
jumping into this turn 1.
Blissey Rosera Aura. So good call from Nihilus here. Goes for Knock. Knows that close combat is not going to one-shot the Blissey from full. Knock is a pretty safe mid-ground if he switches out, and if he doesn't switch out, then he knows he can CC after, which is exactly what happens.
Yeah, the Aura does get toxic, so it's like very slowly losing its life.
And then a brush with death. So Nihilus was not prepared for this Scarf Mr. Mime, which is like the 3rd time this thing has come, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much like the only thing this thing does. So.
Yeah. And it has gotten some pretty decent results at that point, but still, Nihilus knows Doublade hard walls his Braviary. He goes for Swords Dance. He's ready to go for game. He's already done, ready to go for game. He wants to scout and see what Slowking is going to do, and gets Trick Room done.
Yeah. But Skittles actually like taking advantage of that protects, and here doing the same thing again.
Yeah, and then Skittles playing like no fucking fear. And then tragedy for Nihilus, loses 1. That's all. That's all the wiggle room he has. He can't lose anymore.
Yeah, he has to play perfectly moving forward, because if anything dies, he's out.
Yeah, absolutely anything.
Yeah. Slowking gets its Trick Room up again, but Shadow Sneak's priority makes sure it doesn't matter. Dusknoir comes in.
Nihilus goes for the Protect again, just to scout the Poltergeist, as well as to try and kill Trick Room turns.
Yeah, he's just sort of trying to figure out like what angle that Skittles is coming from here.
Yeah. And then again, Skittles gets into Ferrothorn Swords Dance, but then loses Trick Room, so he gets out of there. Doesn't want to risk getting hit by like a close combat. Another Swords Dance.
Yeah. So, sort of revealing that the Ferrothorn also probably doesn't have knockoff.
Mm-hmm.
As it would have hit this thing very hard and also weakened its defenses.
Certainly would have gone for it by now. Brave Bird does 21. Nihilus chances the second roll. Swords Dances again to guarantee a kill. Lives on 1. Gets the kill back with close combat. But now he's going to die on Iron Barbs on Ferrothorn, so he's got to go into something else.
Yeah, and he chooses Hitmontop to be his final bastion.
And he dodges the Power Whip.
Yeah, dodges the Power Whip.
With no Intimidate, that Power Whip could have actually been a huge, huge problem. And then Skittles kind of fumbles the ball right here at the very last second. It goes for Swords Dance instead. But Nihilus fucking 5, man. Nihilus 5-0 over Skittles.
5-0.
Which means he is still in the running, depending on how the game goes between Mass and Cabral to get into playoffs.
The game is not over yet. There's still hope if he just crosses his fingers, wishes upon a star. The possibility is there.
Yeah, the dream run is not dead. It actually could still happen. And honestly, I could see Maz versus Cabral going down to the wire last Pokemon. It's just a matter of Cabral winning. You know, if Maz wins by any amount, he's into playoffs. And honestly, he has had such a stellar season to show for it. Compared to like Cabral and Nihilus, who didn't have bad seasons or anything, but Maz was really the only one of the three who clinched a really big upset over Kemeth, which put him squarely at the top of that set.
Yeah, he was looking as such the favorite to win, and all he has to do now is just knock out Cabral, even with nothing remaining. It's fine.
That's right. Aurora, please tell me who we've got left. I mean, I think we know, but you gotta tell me who we got left to talk about.
The final match, the one for all the marbles and that decides the 4th place of this playoffs, is Cabral of the Hashling H-Slashers facing off against Maz of the Minneapolis Magazons.
That's right. And what a storied match. I mean, the run-up to this was insane. Both of these guys were prepping all week. It was just, there were sweat and bullets. It was well, we'll just say this was the match of the season. Everybody was waiting on the result for this.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that Nihilus already played at this point.
That's
so
right.
Cabral was aware that at the second 5 Pokemon drop,
he's out.
He's out.
Yep. He has to win by
It's
2
just
or more.
Yeah, it's just a question of that of like, does he win with that final Pokemon, open the door for Nihilus, or does he just like fall over dead and leave the door open for
Conversely, again, it is Maz's to lose. He has to win this. If he drops it, he's out of playoffs after sitting pretty steady there in 4th place qualification for a couple weeks now. Man, Middable Maz. So scary. So tight.
It's almost... It feels like this is scripted somehow, but it's not, which makes it so much better.
I know, it is absolutely insane. And honestly, Aurora, let's just jump into it. I want to see this turn 1.
Yes.
So, Celesteela is a pretty big problem for this team, except for Zygarde, who is a big problem for Celesteela. But as soon as Zygarde's out of the picture, Celesteela does quite well versus the rest of this team, except for, I guess, Magmortar.
Yeah, and Cabral just clicks 1,000 arrows, the good move, no reason not to do it. And hey, he actually gets out of the way of the very obvious telegraphed ice move.
Yeah, he did sack to a triple axle on Vincent way earlier in the season, so he learned his lesson from that. Goes for the Ancient Power to try and cheese an Omni Boost and hit Frostlass super effectively. Why not?
Yeah, and this thing gets toxic, which does negate its leftovers, and gradually starts damaging it.
Yeah, ends up being a pretty pivotal toxic too. This Heavy Slam plus toxic damage it might seem pretty minor, but it stacks up pretty quickly considering that Celesteela hits that thing fairly hard.
Yeah, it's also just the fact that this Snorlax kind of sits on this Zygarde, and it's kind of nothing happens forever.
Reveals immunity as well, so the toxic swap goes poorly for Cabral. So he's playing a little bit on the back foot already. Having taken the Toxic on 2 of his more Wally Pokemon. But then he reveals he's the Rain Dance Hydration set again. Which he loves the set, Aurora. He loves the set.
Cabral just loves the set. He doesn't care that there's a Primarina there who could be Specs hydro pumping his whole team to death. That's fine.
Yeah, who cares? Crocodile comes back out, reveals Scarf, and kills off the Morpeko, proccing Moxie, but of course now that you're Scarf into Earthquake, he's got, 2 ground immunities he can choose from. And you see, again, Heavy Slam plus toxic damage just does so much.
Yeah, it does a quarter every time it comes in at least. And with the toxic negating the lefties.
Yep.
This thing is now marked for death as one more toxic turn here.
Yeah, and Maz smartly chooses to go back into Snorlax, knowing that this thing can't heal, can't remove its toxic, and is pretty much forced to 1,000 arrows again, or it might just lose to Celesteela.
Yeah, Maz deciding to heal up his Snorlax here, after taking a pretty nasty close combat from the Crocodile, and reveals the Rest Talk set.
Yeah, Rest Talk, Toxic, and Heavy Slam are the 4 moves.
Yeah, and he manages to not roll
Heavy Slam twice.
Heavy Slam twice in a row, which that is on average what happens. But it does give exactly the 2 turns that this Magmortar needs
to get set up. Yeah, because this Magmortar
set up
turns out is sub Saligberry, which you don't tend to see really on Magmortar.
Yeah, and now, he's in a very difficult position where, depending on like exact rolls, this thing can potentially like maybe live 2 hits, but it doesn't. And you see here that Heavy Slam does in fact kill the substitutes.
Yeah, so now this thing is out in the open, but it's revealed Thunder Punch Dual Chop, which will get through the rest of these Pokemon unless it dies, which hangs on the Ice Shard, 13%. And Latios...
Dual Chop, Dragon type move, kills Latios.
No Scarf.
And Steela comes in, takes the Thunder Punch, and is out. Which leaves Cabral with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Pokemon left.
Funny how that works out. Cabral 095, second season, first time making it to playoffs in the 4th slot. Hard fought, scary fight. I could have very easily seen that going down to a one-on-one scenario where Nihilus could or could not have gotten in based on the winner. But Cabral just aggressively plays on that Rest Talk Snorlax, gets in, gets off the sub belly drum, and then it's just over. And then Mass has no counterplay.
Once it was sort of revealed that this Snorlax, like its last move for Rest Talk, Cabral, it must have clicked that this thing like sort of lacks in offensive pressure as well as coverage for most of its mons. So he just saw an opportunity and went for it.
Yeah.
He saw this thing was asleep, that Mass was forced to roll the dice on whether or not he even gets Heavy Slam if he doesn't want to switch. And he loses it.
Yeah, and then that was it. I mean, it really only took 1 turn. With a set like that, I mean, it's crazy because it's so hard to get that off. You could get it off in front of like some Celesteela sets. You could get it off obviously in front of this like Rest Talk Snorlax. But really aside from that, this would have been a tough thing to get set up on. Like this sub belly drum, I would say like 3 out of 4 times he's never going to find an opportunity to do this. But he saw his opener, he saw a win con, and he was like, you know what? Force me not to do this right now. And Mass couldn't.
Yeah, it's sort of a question of like, there is no... this Magmortar can't exactly take a hit and still pull off this set, unless it immediately goes from belly drum. It doesn't take over 49% from whatever hits it.
Well, ideally, it would have to take at least, like 12.5%, but not more than 24. Right? Or, hold on, no, it has to take 26%, yeah.
If you immediately go for belly drum and you get hit for 49% or less, then you get the same setup that you have here.
Well, no, because if you don't proc Saligberry, like if he takes like 11%, but he doesn't get sub and he belly drums, then he's at like 30. So he's only belly drums and he's at 30%, no sub, no Saligberry, which is an issue.
And now what I'm saying is like if you click belly drum immediately, which takes half your health, but then you get hit with a move that deals 49% to like 25%.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying you gotta consider that if he takes less than 25, it's an issue.
It's true, but like it's Magmortar.
Yeah, so it will, obviously. Unless it gets like ice sharded by, Frostlight. But honestly, just astonishing. I mean, Cabral just clinched it, from the back. Mass, unfortunately, after a stellar season, drops it at the last second to this Magmortar.
Yeah, and it's sort of been like a theme of this side of the division. We had Vincent, who was at the top the whole season. Then in the last week, he flunks out.
Yep.
And now we have Mass, who was ahead of like this pack to like steal that 4th place slot, and he couldn't hold on to it the very last week.
Yeah.
He just barely slipped through his fingers.
Just some actual tragedy, but what are you gonna do? It's absolutely insane stuff. Good stuff to Cabral. Very unfortunate for Nihilus and Mass to lose that opportunity after bringing it so insanely close. But you can only bring 4, and Cabral managed to beat the odds and become that 4th player. So we've mentioned it like 18 times already, but let's have one final look at what this ranking looks like right now. Yes, we'll do that, and we'll also take a look at the playoffs bracket to keep an eye on going forward. I need to actually pop open these things. So you'll have to give me a moment. Stall for time, Aurora.
I'll just kick us off with, in the first place, it was just barely clinching it out. It's Scoots ending at 6-1 with plus 20 differential. Just under him, we have Vincent of the Hero Haluchas, also 6-1, but only plus 16 differential. Our third playoffs contestant, Near the Well Needle King's Kenneth with 5-2 at plus 13. And finally, for playoffs at least, it's the Hashling Aegis Slashers as coached by CABRAL with 3-4 at plus 3 differential.
Yeah, incredible for him to just barely slide back in there. If you go back and like look at these end of recap rankings, you'll kind of just see fourth is constantly shifting between CABRAL and Mass the entire season, and it ends with CABRAL there. Bringing us up right in the rear, Crown Division, Dallas Ducklets Nihilus at 3-4 -1 actually does manage to slide in front of Mass, the Minneapolis Magnazones, who went from 4th to 6th at 3-4 and -8. Which means, yeah, Nihilus was really the closest one at that point to getting in there. Minnesota Magikarp's Firebolt in 7th place at 1-6 at a -19 differential. And bringing up the rear, 8th place, Nevada Ninetales, Skittles the Butt, our friend Skittles, 1-6 at -24.
What a season. Everybody has at least a win. Everybody has at least taken one loss. Very, very balanced, I feel.
Yeah, and look at that 4 through 6. It's all 3 and 4. Like, it's really only decided by head-to-head differential. I mean, that's entirely it for playoffs qualification this season. That is not the case. If you look over at Armor Division, we're not going to talk about it really, but it drops from 4th place 5-2 to 5th place 2-5. Like, there is no sort of transitional spot in the rankings where you'll find like really close competition for that qualification. Whereas if you look at Crown Division, the difference between 4th and 6th is like 11 differentials, and that's it. It's literally the same exact win-loss.
Yeah,
which is just absurd.
That's crazy. It was so tight. The fact that it came down to just differential, that Pokemon numbers mattered, is so crazy. The fact that 3 people even had the possibility of making it through is like very unlikely. You need a very specific scenario, but we managed to find one of them.
Right. What a season. What a season. You should all be very proud of yourselves. I mean, it's dope that you were able to have a bracket that went no undefeated and nobody with 0 wins. That's, I think, really, you gotta hope for that, like, as a spectator, and honestly, as like 7 out of 8 players, you kind of want to hope that nobody went undefeated. But of course, I mean, if you're Vincent, that's a real heartbreaker. That 2nd place is just not, it's not what you want to see.
Yeah, losing that undefeated streak in the final weeks, it hurts to the very core of your soul. It's an experience you never forget.
Yeah, absolutely. You would know, wouldn't you? You would know. Conversely, Scoots has got to be riding high on Cloud 9, loving that he just was able to snipe that 1st place after sitting not in it a single time this entire season. So, incredible from Scoots. You really got to give it to him. And you got to give a shout out to Kenneth as well. I mean, dropped to Mass, which was very scary. He had a moment where he could have really fallen out of the top 4, and managed to pretty dominantly bring it back around to a 5-2 season at the end. So
yeah, after he lost to Mass, if he had dropped the game to either CABRAL or Nihilus, he puts himself in a very precarious situation.
Yeah, well, he'd already when he lost to Mass, I think he still had to fight CABRAL and then Firebolt were his last 2. And, honestly, I could have seen him losing either one of those, or even both, given the right setup and the right team building and prep and things from the other 2 players. But no, Kenneth held steady. He didn't tilt. He was like, all right, you know what? I lost to Mass. That's the past. We're going to end this season strong. And then he did. So, good stuff from Kenneth.
In fact, he didn't even end the season. He's still in it.
Yeah, still in it, so... That is remarkable, and if you would be so inclined, Aurora, let's take a look at the bracket. Do you have it in front of you?
I do have it in front of me.
All right, here is our top 8 playoffs bracket. Leading us off at the top, the first round, you've got IDM of the Brussels Espions, the 1st seed of the Armor Division, fighting the 4th seed of the Crown Division. The hero, the protagonist, the man who made it happen. You've got the hash-slinging Aegis Slashers, coached by CABRAL 95. Obviously, at a glance, player to player, IDM wins that pretty much every time. I mean, barring any crazy matchup shenanigans or bad, terrible luck, player to player should be IDM.
Yeah, it's like, congratulations, CABRAL, you made it in. Now get out.
Yeah, really, it's kind of a bittersweet feeling because you're so excited. You're like, yes, I just clinched playoffs, let's go! And then you're like, oh, I'm in 4th, so I have to fight IDM. Like, that's kind of the... you almost have to think of it as like you get rewarded for doing better in season and you get punished for doing worse. So if you happen to make it into playoffs with a pretty poor record, well, you're going to have to fight hard
champion of the other end, yeah.
Yeah, so tough match for CABRAL, but if he manages to make that upset, that would be absolutely insane. The second match on that side of the bracket, you've got the Hairlin Haluchas, coached by Vincent, bittersweet second place of the Crown Division, versus Maryland Manectrics, the 3rd place finisher of the Armor Division. This is actually a runback of the playoffs round 1 match last season. I don't know if you know that. But it was immediately Claire versus Vincent that time as well, and Vincent pretty comfortably beat her.
Yeah, but I feel that the matches between both like 2nd and 3rd places, I mean all these matches could go either way, but I feel like especially the 2nd and 3rd ones just feel that they're so close.
Yeah.
Like I can easily see this one going either way.
Yeah, honestly, especially Claire got momentum off that 2nd IDM win in a row, versus Vincent, who did get sort of put in his place a little bit by Scoots there right at the last second. So if either of them are a momentum player, then you gotta look out for Claire.
Yeah. And if we do end up in the situation where Claire manages to beat Vincent and IDM beats CABRAL, then Claire gets to face up against IDM once again.
Yeah, the immediate run back from her week 7, which she won that time. So, but you already know that IDM is going to be ready for any shenanigans this time around too.
Yeah, IDM will be there with a vengeance.
Don't give IDM a second chance. That's the worst thing you can do.
Yeah.
Conversely, I'd like you to introduce the bottom half of the bracket, if you don't mind.
The bottom half of the bracket begins off with me.
Yay! Aurora, Brook Hunters!
Yeah. Facing off against Kenneth of the Near-to-Well Nido Kings.
Yeah, we had a stacked fucking season. It's kind of crazy that that's the 3rd place out of the Crown Division.
It's insane. Fucking Vincent, Scoots, Kenneth all on one side of bracket. And I still would argue that we didn't have, like, scuffed brackets.
No, I think the graphics were pretty solid, actually.
Yeah, I feel like Nihilus definitely performed higher than we expected him to.
Well, nobody bombed in a way. Well, I guess FIREBOLT did, but
FIREBOLT did bomb a little bit.
It was unfortunate. Yeah, I think FIREBOLT was the one projected to take that 4th spot, and is really the only one missing here by seed projection, being replaced, of course, by CABRAL. But yeah, you versus Kenneth, that's a run back that hasn't happened in a long time. I believe last time you fought is season 3.
Yeah, last time we fought, I'm pretty sure I got swept by Ninjask.
Yes, that was what happened. You got swept by Ninjask, and then went on to win the whole season. So.
Yeah, it was just a little minor brush to take.
Yeah, kind of a bump in the road, but definitely something to remember, given how strong your season otherwise was. But obviously for Kenneth, he's coming off of a 2nd place last season, only having lost to Scoots and IDM the whole season. So
he'll be looking to take it all the way this time, and
yeah, he's got a fire in his heart. Like that's you gotta understand. Like he's terrifying. But so are you. I feel like you had kind of a if we want to use the word scuffed, you had kind of a scuffed playoffs last time where you kind of got screwed by the the Spectrier. So it's it's kind of this moment of like, are you going to find that top 4 where you didn't find it last season, or is Kenneth going to make a statement, put his foot down, say, all right, look, grand finals last season is not a fluke. I'm about to head back there again. Scary, exciting match, definitely for sure, one to watch. Take us to the 4th. Yeah, I mean, shit, I was about to do it, but it was like, I already introduced the first 2, so it's just weird. Aurora, take it from me.
The final matchup we've got going on here in playoffs is going to be the Dumblespoots army, Scoots facing off against you.
Me, yeah, 4th place.
No, the viewer. The viewers.
The viewer, yeah! Battle Royale.
Applause for yourself.
Yeah, no,
it's Food of the Southtown Sun Slashers.
yeah, I finished Armor Division in 4th place, tragically, and Scoots finished out Crown Division in 1st. So, them's the breaks. That's what you get for getting 4th place.
Yeah.
Yeah, historically, we've had a hard time. I kind of get... So, the thing is, this is a run back of Season 1 Grand Finals where I did win versus Scoots after losing to him in group stage, and then lost to him every single time we played since. And it's not been a small amount of matches, we'll say that. I remember I had to fight him in Season 2 and lost, and then Season 3, I think I dodged him, and then I lost to him again in Season 4. So,
how is it possible that it feels that Scoots is just like done like a million battles?
I know, it's insane. He's just everywhere. He's just like such a grinder. It's insane when you think about it. But yeah, my head-to-head versus Scoots is pretty abysmal. But I did get the one where it mattered the most, right? And we haven't played in playoffs, I don't think, since Season 1. So there is that. So I don't know. Yeah. Maybe I'll get the playoffs bumped and I'll make it happen. But
yeah, he also doesn't have Latias this time.
That's true. Don't talk to me about Latias. I don't want to hear it. Yeah, no, Scoots. Honestly, maybe not as big of a disparity as you'll see in IDM versus Cabral, but it's very squarely a Scoots' favorite match. So we'll have to see. Can I make the upset, or will I be taking you through our top 4 as the streamer host?
All 4 of these matches are ones to watch, and I know people will be chomping at the bit the second somebody announces, "Hey, we're doing our match in chat."
Crazy stuff. I don't know, but that's all you gotta say about it. That's what it is. So crazy stuff. You gotta watch playoffs. I really hope that playoffs coverage comes out in a timely manner. It's going to be hard to find people to cover playoffs that aren't in it. You'll notice that kind of our regular stable of commentators for these things are all in playoffs this time, so that does make it a little more difficult. But yeah,
somebody's just going to have to bite the bullet to do the stream. It's fine.
Yeah, insane, just crazy stuff. So. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us for the Crown Division recap for the final time. I am your host, Spood, coach of the Southtown Sandslashers.
And I've been Aurora. We'll probably do one more for the first round of playoffs. There'll be one more recap, and after that, it's top 4, baby.
Yeah, that's it for that's it. No more. Obviously it's already playoffs time, so it's pretty scary anyway. But this is the last time, most likely, you're going to be hearing from me and Aurora in the same room. I definitely recommend checking out the Armor Division recap for Week 7. I believe that one was done by Cabral and Whiteloaf, your boy Nick. They're going to give you some good coverage. They're going to let you know what's going on. They're going to give you their input on the playoffs bracket, I think. I don't know if they actually did that or not. Hopefully they did. But definitely give that one a look if you're interested. And someone will be seeing you back here for playoffs Week 1 coverage that you are not going to want to miss.
See ya next time.